Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love money, mine. Love money, mine. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Chris Walsh. Chris is from Tutor Right. He is an online tutor and he used to be a teacher, and he's also the co-host of the Small Business Hack Show. We met on Clubhouse where I shared my expertise all around Amazon and e-commerce in the Small Business Hack Show, and we connected, and he's got a really powerful story to share with you today. Hi Chris, I really appreciate you giving me the time to interview you today.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
So I know we recently met. It's funny, all my interviews recently are all like, we recently met in Clubhouse. The Clubhouse app has been going a bit crazy with connections. I've met so many amazing people on that new platform. And we met in your business, is it the Business Cafe?
So it's Small Business Hacks for Growth, it's called, that room. Yeah.
That's the proper one.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really good to connect with you on there. And I know we were sort of like sharing stories, and you kind of, you know, I'm going to get you to actually explain what you've been doing, but I know you were a teacher, and I think you've got quite a good, inspiring story to share with people, because I know you're also doing your online businesses now. So just going to really ask you, you know, how did this all come about that you were doing the online tutoring, and also I know you're also got a VA business running at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, well, before the online tutoring, it was all completely face-to-face. So to get to the online bit, really got to go back to how I started the face-to-face originally. So it was, trying to think, 5.5 years ago now it was. I was teaching sort of straight from uni. I went from college to uni, straight into teaching. I'd done my biology degree, did my PGCE, and then went straight into it. Absolutely loved teaching. I knew that education was probably the route that I wanted to go down, to be honest. I mean, I have a younger brother. I used to love teaching him. You know, he had his homework and stuff like that. And he'd say, I don't quite get this, can you help me? So I'd do that. I always enjoyed school, to be honest. I always enjoyed learning. It's something I've always done. If we have, my wife despairs of this, but if we ever have anything that comes from IKEA or anything technical or anything that's got to have a manual or instruction manual, I read the whole thing. I hate sort of winging it. So I love just reading through it and learning as I'm going and doing it properly.
I'm the opposite. I skim read, and I'm always getting told off, read the instructions, because I'm just I pick out the things and chuck it away and then regret it.
That's exactly like my wife. She said, you don't need to do that. It's easy, just put this here and this there. And I'm like, no, I want to make sure I've done it right. Half the time, to be fair to her, she does get it bang on. But there has been 1 or 2 times where I've sort of said, oh, you should have listened, but, you know, we won't talk about them. I get told off. But so I knew that education was what I wanted to go into. And so when I started doing that, I was teaching science at high school, sort of really, really local to me. It was actually, surprisingly, it's a school in Warrington, and the school that I worked at, I was lucky in that it was the first interview I'd gone to, and I got the job, and it was round the corner. At the time I was living with my mum and dad. It was literally round the corner from their house. But luckily, not quite the catchment for that particular school, because we had another school on our doorstep, which I used to go to. So I was seen by a lot of my friends as, wait, you went to this school, but you're working at that school. Oh, you traitor. You know, that sort of thing. You know, you hold it even as you're an adult, you still think about your school days in that way. Really immature. But absolutely loved it. It was a really affluent area. And so the kids were great. No qualms about that. And it was a case of wanting that progression. So once I'd sort of grumbled a little bit that the career progression wasn't quite going to happen there, the school did offer me some TLRs, so teaching learning resources and whatnot, and so it was a case of they were offering me a a bit of money on top of my salary to sort of keep me there as like almost like a bonus.
Yeah.
But with that, you have a few extra responsibilities. So I did that for a year or two, and the lady who was actually in the position that I wanted as head of science, she basically said to us, she was really transparent. She said, you know, in the stage of life that I'm at now with my kids, I'm happy with the job that I've got. I don't want to move any higher. So it's a case of, if I wanted to get that job title, I had to either look elsewhere, or I could have gone down the pastoral route of a head of house or head of year. And for me, I was completely in love with the actual teaching and learning side of things. So that wasn't quite right for me at that point. Yeah, that's it. And I wouldn't want to do something just for money. So it was a case of, I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather move elsewhere and go that way instead. So I did. I went for a couple of interviews at other local schools, came second at both of them, which was annoying at the time, but got some really good feedback off them. And in fact, one of the executive head teachers who was holding the interview, at the first one that I'd had where I came second, he said to me, oh, actually, as an exec head, I'm overseeing 2 different schools. So even though you've come second in this one, I've actually got a job opening that pays more, weirdly, at this other school, and it's actually a higher position. I'm just thinking, do you want to come for that one? And I said, well, I've actually got another interview for head of department, so I'm going to honour that because I've told them that I'll come. I'll do that, and if you don't mind, I'll let you know how that goes, and I'll more than happily, you know, arrange a date with you to come in. So we did that. I went in, and usually when you go to a job interview like that, you've got other people in the waiting area, and you're being called up one by one for your, you know, your little trial lessons or your interviews. And I went and I signed in at reception, sat in the waiting room completely on my own. This is well before COVID, so there was no reason. And I'm looking around and thinking, what's going on? Am I late? Am I really early? At least I'll look good if I'm early. And it turns out he had literally just invited me to come to interview, and kind of said to me before I'd even done the interview per se, he basically said, the job's yours if you want it, because I was impressed from your previous one. I actually had it in mind as you were doing your lesson at the previous interview that I wanted you to come for this job instead. So I thought, oh, that's flattering. That's good.
As well.
Yeah, that's it. And so I ended up working there because obviously, I mean, if you've got a boss that has that much respect and trust in you, really, really shows they want you, you can't really argue with that, to be honest. And so I went and worked in that school, and you know, it was an area that was the polar opposite from where I was previously working. Kids were not in an affluent or sort of nice situation, I'll put it like that. Lots of sort of petty crime, lots of drugs out on the streets, and you know, horrendous stories from the kids of parents going into jail, you know, serving time, brothers and sisters who were in debt with the wrong kind of people, and things like this. And it was like an eye opener. You know, I didn't come from that sort of demographic, and it was a case of, you always see things or hear things or watch programs or news stories, but then to actually be in the middle of it, I was like, wow, this is actually a real thing, and you get to know these people, and it's weird, especially when it's kids that are involved, because kids, you always feel, or at least I do, feel protective over kids because they're younger, more vulnerable, impressionable, and so it was horrible, some of the things they were telling me. But we had a lot of turnover at that school. I was actually only there for a year myself. On the very first day that I was there, it was an inset day. The kids weren't in, and they said, right, we're going to introduce the new staff. Now, in previous years at my other school, it'd be a case of maybe up to 10 staff would maybe introduce themselves. At this particular school, we're all sat in a big sort of assembly hall, and without joking, half of the room stood up. And I sort of looked around and went, oh no, if that's half of the teaching staff.
That was the red flag there.
Yeah, that was the very first day. And I just went, oh no. And it's a strange one. Basically, the kids were great once you got them on side. Hard work, but really rewarding job once you got them on side. And to see them learn was actually more satisfying job satisfaction for me than the kids that I was previously working with, who were kind of the opposite, you know, almost like raised with a silver spoon in the mouth sort of thing, and just very, very like took it for granted. lovely kids still, you got on with them,
Yeah,
but they kind of
yeah.
knew that they could fall on their own 2 feet. Lots of conversations where it was, I don't have to try at my GCSEs, I'll go and work for my dad's company, that sort of thing. And I was like, oh, here we go. Whereas this way around, it was, I really want to do well, because if I don't, I'm going to end up like my older sister or my older brother, who's now doing X, Y, or Z, like really dodgy things. So you had these kids that were really eager, but maybe didn't quite have the resources at home to go and further their learning outside of the classroom. So it was really like a balancing act of what to do. Got them on side, it was great. I had a lesson observation, which isn't unusual. You get observations as teachers from deputy heads of departments, even the head teacher every now and then. And without trying to blow my own trumpet, I'd always got sort of outstanding sort of grades from that. So the way that it works is that you get, and it's really brutal the way they word it, inadequate is a grade 4, where basically there's a massive red flag. Have you ever taught a lesson before? That sort of thing. 3 was requires improvement, which is a nice way of saying you can't.
This is the Oxford scores, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And that's what they use internally in all the schools to do it. 2 was good and 1 was outstanding. So I was used to getting outstandings and the occasional good. Didn't start off that way. In teacher training, I was terrible at first, but you learn. That's the whole point. You learn on the training. But I always had the kids working well for me, because I always got them on side. You know, it wasn't a case of trying to be their friend. It was a case of trying to just understand them. I felt like that was one of my biggest strengths. There were people in the department with higher qualifications. There were some with PhDs, you know, and they wanted the kids to say, no, don't call me Mr. Smith, call me Dr. Smith. And I was like, oh no, you're trying to appeal to 14, 15-year-old kids. You're going to take the mick out of you. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be on their level to a degree and get the respect. So once I, like I say, get a class, win them over as best I could, get them to work hard for you. And then when it came to lesson observations, it was a dream. You could pick any class. I wouldn't be nervous about any of them showing me up, because they wanted to do it for me, because they knew I was obsessed.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is almost like playing the game a little bit. I don't think any teacher has ever given a real representation of what their day-to-day teaching is like in a lesson observation. It just doesn't happen, because when you know you're about
to being watched, exactly. It's like any assessment like that, isn't it?
Well, it's like anything. You're going to put on a show, you know. And it wasn't that my day-to-day teaching was crap. It was that I'm going to want to show off what I can do. And this particular lady, this assistant head teacher, came to watch my first observation at this new school, and she rated me. I think it was she said a 3, borderline 4. I went, huh? Now, and I wasn't trying to be cocky. I wasn't trying to blow my own trumpet or anything like that. I just sort of said, oh, I'm really surprised, because I've actually demonstrated within this lesson the progress that these kids are making. Can you sort of run through why? He said, well, straight away, there was one girl's book who hadn't been marked within the last 2 weeks. I said, yeah, she's been off school for 2 weeks and she had a book with her. This is the first time I've seen it myself. Well, it's just not good enough. I was thinking, what do you want me to do? Go to a house and demand the book? But this was obviously what I was dealing with. And there was a couple of other things which said, one of the children didn't have a pen, and you lent her one of your pens. Why did you do that? Well, because she needed a pen to write with. What do you think? Like, she went, I don't think that was acceptable. I think that should have been a phone call home, almost on the spot. I was like, what? What the hell? Like, you don't get these kids. These kids are not going to respond to you shouting, threatening. With other kids, it might. With these kids that are hard as nails, you know, that know how to work people, I said, it's not going to work. You don't do that. Plus, it's a bloody pen. Get over it. Some people are such sticklers for things like that. I'm thinking, it's not the military. It's school. They're kids.
Exactly.
It's weird. So it was nothing to do with the teaching. It was nothing to do with the behavioural management. And it was to do with things like that. And I just sort of said to her, like, okay, so can I just quickly ask, if I'd have, you know, if she had brought a pen herself, would I have got a higher grade? She was like, well, maybe, yeah. I was thinking, I said, well, how can I affect her bringing a pen to school? She went, well, that's your job, isn't it? You've got to enforce the rules so that she knows she's got to bring a pen into school. And I was thinking, oh my God. And like I said, that was the standard then followed. She then said to me, because you've got this really low grade.
The lady that's assessing, are they external people?
No, she was internal. She was the assistant head teacher.
Right.
And a couple of funny stories about
the politics and the dynamics. That's
oh, this is it. This was absolutely well. I was like crestfallen basically. I remember after that, she'd said to me, "We're going to have to make this a fortnightly observation until you've improved." And this was strange because in my previous role in my previous school, I was NQT coordinator. I was the one helping the newly qualified teachers to get better. So my job was to do lesson observations. So without trying to sound like a real nerd, I knew all the teaching standards like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
So I'd be saying, right, that's Q2 that I've just hit there, that's Q3A, and all this sort of thing. And I'm thinking in my head, I don't understand. And some of the standards that she was claiming that she'd saw or didn't see, I was thinking, well, that doesn't marry up to what's happened. And so I was almost having to analyze her analysis, and it was a really strange one. But anyway, I sort of went away from that thinking, well, that's not the wind out of my sails a little bit, because I thought I was settling in quite well. Spoke to the head of department, and he said, oh yeah, she does this with every new member of staff. She basically wants to walk around like a peacock, get above them so that people know that she's the boss.
Yeah.
And you'll turn into her latest case study. I was like, what do you mean? He said, well, she's done it a few times. She gets someone, doesn't matter if they're good, bad, or in between, she'll get someone, rate them really low. And as the fortnightly observations go along, with her trusted expert feedback, you'll suddenly flourish into an outstanding teacher. And that will sort of make her role seem worthwhile, because he said she doesn't really do much teaching. In fact, it's funny, she was a teaching assistant here only a few years ago. She hadn't gone to university to get the qualification that way. It was funded through the school.
Way these types of people.
Yeah. And I said, well, how she managed that, and how she gone from being a teaching assistant to assistant head teacher in the space of 5 years? He said, funny story. So the previous head teacher that you've not met that was here before the current one was having an affair with her. And I was like, oh, okay, right, the pennies dropped, right, this makes sense. And it was one of those, it was like, no knowledge, as it were, that she'd sort of gone up the rankings rapidly, far quicker than any other member of staff in a school that I'd ever met. And she didn't know a backside from an elbow. And it was a really, really, I was thinking, well, how am I supposed to do this? It's against my sort of belief and morals to suck up to her just to get by when she's doing a crap job herself. And so I actually said to her, can I come and observe one of your lessons so I can learn from you? Thought I'll be really tongue in cheek, And so I went to observe, and it was horrendous. She did have the whole class in silence, which I hate. Personally, I hate that. I think a classroom should be a bit vibrant. It should be sharing ideas. It should be collaborative. Yeah. There's times to be quiet. If you're doing an assessment or you've got a settling activity when they first come in, maybe, silence or register. But the whole lesson, yeah. Some of the kids had their heads on the hands, just on the desk. I'm thinking, this is strange. Funniest of all, one of the kids asked for a pen, and she gave him a pen. I was like, you. So it was really, really strange. And I would say over the process, or over the course, I say, of a couple of months of this going on, they then, in the department, so away from her, gave me the responsibility of looking over the NQTs. So they were semi-promoting me with responsibilities and stuff within my department, because they could see the teaching I was doing was good.
Yeah.
The assistant head obviously feeds directly to the deputy heads and head teacher. So then they started saying to me, oh, Chris, do you need any guidance? These were people I'd never spoken to before. And I said, no, doing okay, class. My classes are actually performing really, really well. If you look at the test scores, they're outperforming the set above them in many cases. And as soon as that happened, they take the top kids and put them into the set above, and then replace them with the bottom kids.
Yeah.
So it was always a case of I was having to do like a transformation for these kids, get the confidence up. And I was thinking, no one's giving me any praise for the work that I'm doing there academically, which is what I'm employed to do. But it was just this woman had a power trip, and because she had this position of power, people were listening to it, and I was like, this is crazy. And in the end, I sort of said to her, listen, I think you're being really unfair. I think you bang out of order with your lesson observations. You keep giving me threes now. I've gone from a 3-4 to a 3. I said, I've been told about your past history in terms of doing this as a case study, and I'm not here to further your career. I'm here to help these kids and further my own career. So could you not use me as a scapegoat or as a little platform in which to build your credibility. And she, to put it bluntly, she saw her arse. She really, really did. And it went back into.
Because you hit the nail on the head.
Well, yeah. Well, she made then a complaint against me, saying that I was speaking out of turn, being disrespectful, and all this. And in the workplace, and I was like, this is the first time I've ever, in any part-time job, in just education in general, the first time I'd ever been accused of doing anything like untoward. And I was like, I've stuck up for myself. I've not swore. I've not called you a name. I've just said, please don't use me for that. And I was having to have a meeting with the head teacher about this as he's giving me a warning. And I was like, what the hell? And the head teacher, this is the guy that didn't employ me. This is the guy below the executive head teacher.
He's the guy that employed you.
He was so busy going back and between the two schools, it was hard to get a minute with him. I did catch up with him a couple of times, and he'd say to me, oh, don't worry. She's along the lines of, she's just testing you to see if you can hack it here. That he was just brushing it off, because he had several members of staff complain about, not just her, there were several people in those positions doing it. It was a very much dog-eat-dog school, cliques everywhere, and if you weren't part of the cliques or the in crowd,
you think that, like, I'd say that the job was hard enough as it was, with the kind of demographics and trying to motivate and inspire people. You don't even need that on the inside.
Well, that's it.
You need like a good supportive team around you.
But it was one of those where I know that obviously in Clubhouse I'd spoken about this. I then started feeling unwell within myself. I didn't associate it with anything mentally. I did feel down. Obviously, you would do if you were scrutinized about something that you felt was unfair on a repeated basis, weren't giving any tips in which to improve in that person's point of view. But you continually try to improve, and you know that some of those same lessons you were doing previously graded outstanding only 6 months ago. You're left scratching your head thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? And I think it's her, but no one's going to believe me because she's getting paid more than me and she's got a better title than I've got. So I can't really do that. So anyway, so I was having all this and I started losing quite a lot of weight. I'm a fairly big guy. I'm 6'5", 17 and a half stone. I'm not proud to admit that bit. COVID weight, by the way. But at the time, I think I'd lost about 3 stone. I think at the time, I was probably around 16 stone normally. And I think I went down to about 13 stone, which is 6'5". I mean, I just looked gaunt. I looked, like a skeleton by comparison, very, very lanky and thin and just very pallid. And I remember my wife sort of saying, I hadn't really noticed it until I looked back at photos from a few months ago, because I'm seeing you day to day. It's hard to see the transformation like you would when you watch a kid growing, over the years. It's hard to see it if you see them every day, but over the summer holidays, you notice they've shot up. And she went, how much do you weigh now? And I told her, and she went, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. But you're still eating, aren't you? I said, yeah, I'm still eating everything. I said, the issue is, and to not go too graphic here, I find myself needing to go to the toilet an awful lot more. And I find myself every now and then throwing up. And I'd sort of not been telling her about that. I just thought I kept getting these bugs, these 24-hour bugs or something. And I said, what, you being sick? I went, yeah, I'm actually being sick in school sometimes. At break times when I could get a chance, I'd sort of keep it down if I could, but I could feel it coming up, this knot in my stomach. And I'm going to the toilets in a cubicle and just throwing up, wiping myself down almost and teaching the next class. And she went, well, you need to go and get checked. It doesn't sound healthy, So I went to the doctors thinking they were going to say something that you've got a stomach problem, or an intestinal problem or something like that. And the doctor who treated me, a lady, really, really nice, she said, my husband and my dad, she went, dad obviously is a retired teacher, husband retired a few years ago from teaching. Both said they suffered at some point or other with stress because of the job. And when you Google most stressful jobs, along with doctors and solicitors, teachers come up fairly high. And so I said, well, I'm virtually, if you ask anyone, they would describe me as being horizontal. I'm not stressy as a person typically. I'm fairly laid back, like I say, to the point of being horizontal. I let things sort of slide. And I said, I don't think it'll be that. She went, well, actually, do you know what? They didn't either. A lot of people don't. What it does, stress and depression and things like that, it manifests itself to a point where you're still going on with your normal routine in your head, but your body, because you're not understanding it, your body's trying to tell you that you're suffering. And so it makes physical ailments occur as a result. And so I was getting, like I said, these symptoms that were physical, and I was saying, well, could it not be anything else? And she genuinely said, well, if it is stress, this is not going to help you. If it is something that's physical rather than mental, it could well be something like stomach or intestinal cancer. Oh, right, sure, because what you're saying to me sounds like some of the symptoms that we need to rule out pretty sharpish. I was like, well, let's hope it's not stress, because it's, if I didn't have it before, I certainly do now. And she said to me, and again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but to really hit home the message from a story I'll tell you in a second, I said, well, how do we test for that? She said, well, by the sounds of what you're saying, it's more intestinal. So we're going to have to perform a colonoscopy. So I went, what? And she went, yeah, we're gonna have to explore this, unfortunately. And I was like,
you're like, it's stress. I'm
what? Yeah, and well, I thought, right, okay. Now, I had never spoken to anyone about this before. I mean, why would it come up in day-to-day conversation? Have you ever had one of those? But I sort of said to her, the first thing on my mind, and I was sort of taking it in, I went, how far in? Was the first question I asked. I was like, how far in are we talking? She went, you don't want to know. I said, well, now that you just answered it like that, I need to know. Like, I'm going to be thinking it's coming out my throat like floss. I was like, please tell me. And she said, well, without exaggerating, it's quite a long, complex tunnel, the intestines, and they want to see the whole, you're talking at least, and she was going back, she went, at least that. I was like, what? I'll be asleep though. She went, you probably won't be asleep now. They'll give you lots of sedatives. Sometimes you fall asleep during it, but most people don't. Yeah, I might just take my chances. So I obviously had to go and get that done, but I booked the day off work because they said you're going to be under local anaesthetic. You're not going to be able to drive because
it's the because my background, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for years, so they give you, I can't remember what it's called now, but it's to clear all your bowels out before, isn't it? And that's
what a detox that was. Yeah,
I know my dad's had a few of them because he had a bit of a cancer scare, and he said that is the worst part of it.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what? And I would say this to anyone that's listening that might ever have to have one. It's not something I would sign up to for fun, like colonical irrigation or whatever you call it. But in terms of the procedure itself, it really was not bad at all. You're talking a little bit of discomfort and more like the embarrassment and the stigma of working in that area of the body. But you're dealing with people that do it on a day-to-day. That's their job. They're not bothered.
Exactly.
So it's like, and the thing is as well, I've never really been like body conscious or anything like that. So it's a case of like, I'm quite open about most things, like talking about this. So for me, it was a case of, well, look, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. I'm probably going to be in pain, but let's do it. And when I found out, like I say, when it started and it was going ahead, you are dosed up to the eyeballs. You don't feel anything. It is the night before, like you said, when you have to clear everything. Yeah, that's an experience that you don't. Yeah.
But at least that put your mind at rest of the whole cancer thing and ruled it out. And then I presume, well, were clear.
I had it, but before I had it, I had to send in a request to have the day off work. The head teacher, who I said had sort of been listening, had her in his ear the whole time, came back to me and said, I noticed that you put the whole day off. Why have you put the whole day off? It says in this letter that the procedure's at 9 a.m. Surely you can come in the afternoon. I went, yeah, if you want me to come in like a hippie or like that, I've said I'm still going to be dosed up. Like I can't. They've told me not to come in, not to drive, take the day off. They actually said to me, genuinely, take a few days off after, because some people have repercussions of it, little side effects or whatever, or feel groggy the next day like they've had a hangover. I said, but I'm saying I'm going to come in because it's getting towards exam times and I don't want to miss sort of coursework deadlines and revision sessions. So I'm doing you a solid here by coming in the next day after something that I'm really terrified about. And the only thing you can say is not hope it goes well. And I even said in the email, it's to check up on potentially, cancer or something, and wasn't bothered at all. And So I said, yeah, no, I won't be coming in. Really sorry about that. And he actually genuinely took it up with the executive head teacher, who, to be fair to him, turned around to him and said, stop being an idiot. Yeah, it's fine, take the day off. So he was okay. It was the head teacher. I was like, oh my God, where's like the humanity in any of this?
Exactly.
Had it done anyway. It came back, with biopsies and whatnot, that everything was fine. So that then, the doctor had originally said to me, you go and see your GP, whatever the results are, because if it's not anything to do with cancer or tumours or anything like that, it may well be something else that she suggested. So I went back and said, yeah, well, it really does sound like it's stress. And from what you're describing to me, especially when I told her that bit about him kicking off, about me taking half a day off to go and do something fun for myself, she said, yeah, it really sounds like you're in a toxic environment, was the words she used. I could see why anyone would be stressed, possibly even depressed. And when she started talking about the symptoms and the signs of depression, I was thinking, oh crap, this is ticking near enough every single box. And I hadn't even realized, because I'd never looked into depression, I'd never looked into stress.
Exactly.
And not to say that I wasn't open about it, but if someone ever said to me, oh, so and so is off work with depression, I'd always be, I'll say it, borderline cynical, because I was thinking,
yeah, exactly.
You might just cheer yourself
They
up,
are like that until things happen to yourself.
Yeah, and I used to always say, I don't personally understand it, because I've never been in that state of mind. So I don't understand how you can be. Surely just, go and have a walk, go to the gym, go and watch a film, do something to perk yourself up. And then, like I said, when I went through it, it was a case of none of those things work, and the best way to describe it is, once you've got something in your head, you could be on a beach, in Hawaii with a cocktail in your hand. Your head's still there, unfortunately, and that little voice, that nagging set of doubt, anxiety, depression, it's still there. It doesn't matter what you do, where you're going. There are some things that help, but you still got to manage it. So the GP actually said to me, I'm going to try you on a course of antidepressants and see how that works. And touch wood, it works. The one thing I would say is I tried to go cold turkey on them. When I got to a stage, I was like, I feel good now. I feel okay. I'm probably not depressed now. I went off them completely and nearly had a mental breakdown. It was actually cracking headaches at first and migraines, which I didn't associate with that. And then it just snowballed and I became really, really down and dour. And my mood changed instantly. And I've not done that again since. But this is 5 years on almost, like I say, 5 years on. And I'm still taking them now to sort of manage it, because it's had long lasting effects. And maybe it was a case of I was always going to be prone to having an episode of depression, and that school just accelerated it. Or maybe that school, that experience,
created
it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but either way, it's one of those where I'm always like, especially nowadays where people are a bit more open about things like this, the mental health awareness and things like that. I always think talk about it. Surprising the number of people I've spoke to about it, to be fair, that have then turned around to me and said, oh, you suffer from depression. I would never have said that you would be like, no.
We've got all these perceptions of all these different things, I think.
Yeah, but then a lot of them actually turn around and say, oh, I've actually had antidepressants before. And I'm like, well, you never said it. But it's one of those, some people are more reserved. Some people think they're going to get judged. And I think I said this in Clubhouse to yourself. I think if anyone wants to judge someone, and I know for a fact I'm going to sound like a hypocrite, because I've, like I said, clearly in the past been cynical myself. I would say to those people, like the old me, do you know what I mean? It's just do one. It's not worth it, because
exactly
you don't need to win everyone over.
Focus on your tribe or your following that do. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause you're not going to please everybody anyway.
No, absolutely not.
Regardless of sharing your story, because we all get attracted to different people. So you focus on because I've noticed it as I've increased my followings, I get like different bits of hate messages now, which you just have to just delete and ignore. Because if you're going to read into any of that, you're just going to go down another rabbit hole.
I think it was Grant Cardone said something like, you're making it when you start getting haters.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be haters for every single person. I've had a few myself. And he actively says, I want more haters, because you do get disproportionately more people who admire you and like you compared to haters. They're the sad few, really, that are just jealous or whatever. He said, but if you're getting haters at large scale, that means you're getting admirers and followers at an even bigger rate. Yeah. He said, so it's the trade-off. It's the trade-off of putting yourself in the public eye. You've got to weigh up whether you can handle that or not. If you're someone that can't handle it, it's not for you. If you can.
But it's like, if you're going to put yourself out online anyway and put content on social media, you've got to expect it. Even if it's not from a single person, it's from a business, you've got to be able to be prepared for it, because there's always cynical people, and there's always people who want to criticise everything. And that's just like the world that we live in. And I also think, on the subject of like anxiety, stress, depression, it's funny, isn't it? Because we class it, put it in this mental health box, and I think because it's the word mental there, it's the stigma around that word mental. If it was called health and well-being or something, and it was a more positive condition, it's the word mental that we kind of feel is we don't really associate. But actually, if you look at probably 95% of people in the UK at the moment have had some level of stress or anxiety in this last 12 months because of everything that's happened with the pandemic. But a lot of people are probably just getting on with it or in denial, or don't even realise as yet. Probably like yourself, with just being ill and thinking it's a stomach bug or whatever, and just dealing with the stress of work or lack of work, or being on furlough, or not knowing what they're going to do in the future, or marriage problems. There's all sorts of different things happening right now, and that was one of the reasons why I put this podcast together, to kind of talk about different topics like this, because I think when I was in my darkest place, just being able to hear different people's stories would have kept me going, thinking there is light at the end of the tunnel. And what's really lovely is I do get people, when I first started the podcast, a lot of my friends and contacts with my business knew about it, and they'd feedback, really good stuff. Now I actually get people I've never met before send me messages saying, I've listened to this episode. I just want to thank you that it's actually given me that hope. You know what I mean? That's real. That just makes me realise that I'm making a difference. So coming on here, sharing this, can actually help someone listen to it who could be really, really stressed. And of course, working in a school right now has to be so stressful. Yeah, you're glad you're out of that environment now.
Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet, because I've always said I miss the school environment for the classrooms. I miss having the access to teaching sort of big groups of kids where you can do experiments in science, and you can be collaborative, and you've got group working. It's more of a buzz, it's more exciting. But in saying that, I absolutely love tutoring. I actually love the one-to-one. I'm blessed in a way that my actual passion and love has always been education. And so whether it's a group of kids having a eureka moment or just one, for me, it's a nice feeling. It's that job satisfaction and reward of seeing someone. You're getting paid for it. You're getting paid to do what effectively is your hobby. Because in my spare time, and again, it's really sad, it could be 11 o'clock at night, and I could be thinking, well, what can I listen to, to drift off to sleep? I will genuinely sometimes stick on an A-level maths lecture, because I like learning or recapping different things that I've maybe not looked at in a while or done. And I am genuinely a nerd when it comes to those subjects. So if you put someone in front of me who's paying me for me to talk about that and teach them,
exactly.
And so for me, that's great. And a lot of people do say, if you are passionate about something, if you've got something you're really, really keen to share, and you can bring value to other people, the money side of things comes with it. But that shouldn't be what you chase.
Because, exactly.
Yeah. I know from depression, I wasn't going out. I wasn't really doing much. I was working all the time. And so I was almost like hoarding my money. Didn't make me feel any better.
Exactly. Well, we got in the podcast as well, we have 3 pillars: love, money, and mind. So freedom in love, which is more about self-care rather than romantic relationships, but self-love and self-care. Freedom in money, financial freedom, and freedom in mind. Because those are the 3 things I feel that have helped me get equilibrium in my life. Because like you say, it's not all about money, but if you are struggling with money, that can impact you.
Yeah.
If you don't love yourself and you're not taking care of yourself, that encompasses everything around your health and all that. But not believing in yourself and all that kind of stuff, that can affect you. And then also, I think mindset encompasses it all, because, like you say, Fred in the head can really get to us at times and play tricks with our mind, and it's our subconscious a lot of the time. When I was going through a lot of legal battles and court hearings, I'd think I was fine, and then I'd wake up with some crazy dream, or just like sleeping for a couple of hours, not being able to get back to sleep again, and it's your subconscious that you're not fully aware of when you think you're okay. So mindset is a biggie. So I think you could probably relate to all of those things, really.
Absolutely, yeah. It's weird. Sometimes I'd not sleep at all. Other times I'd be struggling to get up in the morning. And I mean, the real thing for me that forced me to go to the doctors in the first place, as well as all this, I was driving to work. I'm not sure if I said this in Clubhouse that time. I was driving to. I told my friends this actually recently, and they were a bit shocked. I drive to work, and there's a particularly notorious roundabout in Warrington. Lots of sort of little prangs and whatnot, and people misreading. If they're not from the area, it is a difficult roundabout to navigate with several lanes and whatnot. And so if you're traveling that way every single day, you do see a few sort of little minor crashes. And I always used to think, I hope it's me today. I hope someone crashes into me. Not so that I'm fatally, injured or whatever, and nothing too serious, but so I don't have to go into work for a few weeks. I can.
And get out of the situation that you're in.
Yeah, and then when I voiced that to my wife, and she said, "So you're actually wanting in your mind now, you're thinking and wishing harm upon yourself." And when it's worded like that, I thought, that's exactly what it is. I am wishing for a little bit of pain, maybe like a bruised leg or something where it damaged me a bit or fractured my arm or something where I could then get out of work and get out of that place and just not have to. I was thinking, well, that's surely the first step. I don't think anybody, I don't know for definite, I've not researched this, but I imagine very, very few people go from being completely fine one day to absolutely suicidal the next day. I imagine it's a gradual decline. For some people, it's quicker than others. And I thought, well, if this is already getting to a stage where I'm wanting something bad to happen to me, to my health, if this carries on and I don't change it, it could well be that in a few months' time.
It is, because your subconscious plays out, doesn't it?
That's it.
The universe gives you what you focus on. You know what we focus on all the time. So
absolutely,
save yourself in that scenario, really, because I think it's quite difficult for guys. And I can relate to that, not that I'm a guy, but I was the breadwinner in my marriage. So I was always like, I'm a strong, everyone sees me as a strong person. I can't be in an abusive marriage because that happens to weak women, like the perception that you're saying about depression.
Yeah.
And it's like when I think back to my career before I had children, I used to see the part-time mums as, they don't do much. If I'm really honest with myself.
Yeah.
And then when I became a mum and I wanted to go part-time, I reflected on that and thought, I'm actually delivering more in the hours.
I know.
I still was having the development plans or the goals to do. So, and so it's funny that when you only really fully understand when you're in that situation yourself. But I do think it is difficult. This is why I've been having two boys. I think life's difficult, isn't it? That balance for a man, I think, that you want to be able to get it right, to be able to show your emotions, but not be called a wimp. And also be sort of like this tough, I hear some of the things that my boys say.
Yeah.
And I think, how do I change that dialogue without them being really, you just don't want them to be like sort of a wimp, but actually I want them to be able to express. We talk a lot in the house about feelings and things like that. So that's how I kind of do it. But I'm sure there's probably more that I could do, because there's this thing where they're always trying to be, like my youngest he's quite slim, he calls himself skinny. And his mates pick on him, and saying he's not. So he's now like doing boxing. He's doing, this morning he said to me he wanted to go for a run. He's doing like 20 he's only 10. He's like doing 20 sit-ups every morning because he's like, this is his anxiety a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, that's a guy thing, isn't it? Because I can't remember anything happening like that to girls at school. It is all about being strong and tough, and if you're in a rough and tumble fight, you can survive, as it were.
Yeah, there was a thing recently, a few months ago I saw this. It was on maybe Instagram or something, and someone had said, "Oh, the dad bod is in now." And I was like, "Yay." And do you know what it was? I swiped to see the next sort of post in this carousel of images on Instagram. And it said, "Do you prefer Zac Efron in the Baywatch film?" And he's absolutely cut, he's shredded, right? And you're thinking, bloody hell, he's worked hard to get that body. And it says, but look at his more attractive dad bod to the right. I was thinking it's going to be a bit of a belly. You know, I can relate to this guy now. Swipe right, he's still got a 10-pack, but it's just not as defined. And I was like, what the hell? Is this what women think a dad bod is? They're going to be massively, massively shocked if I took a selfie. Bloody hell. It's ridiculous. But that's the thing as well, is like social media has the power for good, but also the power for making people think, oh God, I must be obese. I'm not obese. Compare me to him. I've got the granddad bod. It's ridiculous. Absolutely mad. So yeah,
that goes back to what we were saying about sharing your stories and stuff. Because actually, when the people who, if you saw one that someone was sharing a real dad bod, everyone one of those videos or pictures would probably go viral.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like it when actually people are being real on social media.
Yeah.
There is so much fake stuff. It does worry me with the kids though. I have to really monitor what they're looking at. Because we have this thing that they can only have a mobile phone. I've got a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. They can only have a mobile phone as long as they agree to my spot checks. And if they don't agree, not having one. That's the deal, don't they? And so obviously my 13-year-old really doesn't like it. So these little group chats with girls and stuff like that. And it's not often it's more to check that they're not swearing and using, because it's again that teaching of them that whatever they put down on social media or online is there forever and not deleted, which I know they teach at school as well. But also it's the weirdos, isn't it? You don't know if they're trusting someone and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of parents are speaking to friends and stuff, don't really check anything. It's quite shocking, really, that they kind of just like respect their children's privacy, but it's not like it was in our day, without sounding old. But you know,
there was a case actually.
He said he was depressed. This was in the middle of the lockdown. And I was all like really worried, you know. And then when I broke down, I said, what does depressed mean? He's like, when you feel sad. I said, no, that's feeling sad. Being like, don't mistake, because I think there's also a lot of youngsters doing videos, aren't they, where they're like, I'm depressed. And then the next thing, they are showing like live suicides and all this kind of stuff on.
Yeah, it's weird.
Some scary stuff that I think it's making youngsters this culture of saying they're depressed sometimes when they're not, you know.
No, it's true. You pick up a lot from social media, especially if you're young and impressionable. And there are some people who would take advantage of that because they're going to get paid for the viewership that their videos get for the ads on YouTube. So they'll say what resonates to an audience that they know is popular or whatever. And a lot of these people don't really, I don't think they do it sort of maliciously. I don't think they say, I'm going to include the word depressed and stuff to try and trick kids into think they're being depressed and give them issues later in life. I just don't think they're particularly well educated sometimes in that they see the potential money they could get out of a video.
Short term stuff.
That's it. And so I don't think it's malicious because, like you said, a lot of them are young kids doing these videos, you know, late teens, early 20s, and they'll make a little career for themselves as a YouTuber or whatever, but they'll do some damage to some people, and you can't protect everyone, to be fair.
No, you can't. You just have to educate your own children to understand that level of what it is, isn't it? So you're doing all your, I know you were saying you were doing you moved from teaching then to tutoring, and you were doing that offline. Did it go online in the pandemic, or did you go online before then?
Yeah, it was a very long-winded introduction as to how I got into tuition. Yeah.
I'm like, coming up to the hour now. But it's all been really good stuff.
No, basically, yeah, that was the final straw for me when I realised it was depression. I thought, let's try and do the tuition thing. I had a couple of friends doing it on their own, and so I tried it face to face. It took off. It was brilliant. We built a business around it. We got more tutors then working for me. It was great. And then the pandemic obviously hit, and it was a case of, you couldn't go and see people face to face. So it was a case of, it was built from that, but it was something I'd always wanted to do anyway. So
Yeah.
I knew that I was always going to offer online services, and this really just accelerated the need to do it, obviously a lot sooner. But touch wood again, it's been working fine. It's actually now, I would say, a better service in some ways. It's more convenient for people. They're not having to scramble to tidy the house. Do you know what I mean? That's just one thing off the top of my head. And they're not having to worry about someone turning up late, with traffic or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it is good, and you can share a lot of resources and worksheets electronically, which is also good. I mean,
yeah,
I do like face to face. I think nothing can beat that interaction. Really getting.
I've noticed the handwriting, isn't it? Because my boys, have been going to Kit McGrath, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Ah, the enemy. Yeah, no, I'm joking. Joking.
It's a big chain franchise, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they've been doing the online lessons. They were doing face to face and been doing online. And that's the only thing I've noticed, that actually you lose your handwriting a little bit, because everything's you're typing everything. But then again, that's the world that we're in, isn't it? I suppose when you're younger, you kind of need to be handwriting a little bit more. But
we'll be the generations that can do handwriting, and the new ones won't.
So great. So you're doing it, and I know you've also got your VA business as well. So what is new to let everybody know? Because there might be loads of parents that are listening to this that might be interested in tutoring. Because I know loads of people are doing homeschooling now that are just sick of the whole environment with what's been happening. And
well, to be honest, that was one of the things that we sort of said. We lowered our costs for online tuition because we knew that obviously with the pandemic, people were losing jobs, didn't have the disposable income maybe they did once have. So we tried to make it as affordable as possible, and still provide obviously good value for it. So we do a lot of online one-to-one sessions. We do some group sessions. I myself actually do a GCSE maths catch-up session, I call it, because obviously they've missed a lot of education, and some of the kids now in years 9, 10, 11, who would traditionally be taught GCSE content, have missed big portions of it, or have been having access to online sessions less frequently than they would face to face, or even have been given these programs where they sort of complete tasks without the help of a teacher, especially when it was early in the pandemic, because the schools hadn't had anything or enough time really to arrange a set schedule of live sessions. So they've missed out on a lot. And so the aim for those, it's on a Sunday morning, is to try and basically do half an hour, just a short blast, so the kids don't lose focus. And it's only £5 per person. And so that just gives them a different topic each week of GCSE stuff for years 9, 10, 11, they can catch up. We do the same thing then a bit later on, 12 o'clock, for chemistry, GCSE chemistry. And I picked that one because at the minute, that seems to be the science that most people struggle with, which was strange because it was always physics when I was at school myself. And it's kind of switched now. They've dropped quite a lot of the old AS level stuff into chemistry now. Whereas physics doesn't seem to have increased in difficulty that much.
Always physics, because I did A-level maths, chemistry, biology. I didn't do physics, but I did it at GCSE.
Well, that's it. Well, you'll know the chemistry stuff at A-level, where you're talking more about the electron orbitals and all that kind of stuff. They're learning in a lot more detail now at GCSE than they ever did. Mole calculations, things like that. Titrate GCSE now, and they're learning it actually in parts of year 10. And you're thinking, wow, I was learning that in year 12.
Because I've always wondered how you do all of that kind of stuff online. Like, if you were to say you were, because this is something that I thought about doing, and other people listening to this might have thought about it. Like, if you decided to homeschool, there's obviously practical parts of science, isn't there? And I don't think you can do it from home, can you?
No, you can do some of them.
I'm shocked that there isn't the resources to go to a centre to be able to tick that part off. So I didn't know obviously you'd be teaching the theory part of it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, a lot of it now.
Like practical, what can people do, or they just can't do that subject for homeschool?
No, you can do it. So the alternative that we sort of provide, because it's worth a significant portion of the tests now. You have what's called required practicals, whereas you used to have coursework. They've scrapped coursework for science GCSE and replaced it with these required practicals. So what you're supposed to do in normal years is complete these practicals. Say about 6 per subject, 6 to 8 per subject, and then they'll include some questions based directly on those practicals in the exam. So they'll be embedded within the normal testing of your knowledge of other areas. So like I say, some of the practicals you can do, sort of like heart dissections, you could buy a heart from Morrison's, Asda, wherever, do a bit of a dissection in your kitchen. I've done that before at people's homes.
I remember doing the rat. I did a rat at school, I think.
Yeah, the rat and the frog and stuff like that, yeah. Really exciting. At university, we did an earthworm dissection. Great. So about saving money. But you can do some of them, but the others that you can't do, you can still get a lot of resources to teach the theory of the practical. Nothing replaces actually physically doing it hands-on. First of all, it's more exciting and more engaging for the kids.
Exactly, you remember it more, don't you?
Exactly, it's more memorable, that's it, because you know what colour the indicator has turned, or you know how sort of viscous the fluid was, or how violent the reaction was. And so some of the reactions are brilliant, really entertaining, whiz bang and all that sort of stuff. However, with YouTube these days, and what they're doing in schools at the minute, because even the schools at the moment, from ex-colleagues and friends that are still in the profession, they can't actually now do most of the practicals because that would go against the sort of rules of socially distancing. So they're having to either demo very, very quickly, and anything that's worth demoing, usually it's worth getting fairly close, and they can't. So they're having to play videos of people that have previously recorded how to do it.
I didn't even realise that.
Yeah, so they're still going to get tested on it. That's the thing. They're still going to get tested on these required practicals, but they'll never have done them. So the only way to teach them is to go through the theory of the practical, which is boring as hell. So the best thing you can do as an alternative is to look at a video of someone doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good to know. That's good to know, though, because I thought that you just couldn't do that part of it.
There's a really good free YouTube channel actually for any parents out there. If they're got kids and you don't want to go through the tuition route, if you type it on YouTube, free science lessons. There's a guy called Sean Donnelly, and he has a blue background on all of his videos, and he runs through every single topic you can possibly imagine at GCSE science. And they're only short, they're only 3 or 4 minutes each video, but you can cover topics really, really quick. They're good for like concise revision, making notes.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, like you say, a lot of people have missed. My son's in year 8, so he's going into year 9 next year. But I still think all that foundational stuff from this year, preparing him for year 9 with any gaps and stuff. And, the school's doing bits and things at the moment of extra sessions, but anything you can pick up, I think, is really valuable. So I'm sure that's a really good share. I'll check it out as well.
Yeah.
So let everybody know that's listening how they would get, if they wanted some extra tutoring, because especially like what you were sharing with the GCSE, you were doing the chemistry and the maths sessions on this.
Yeah, so I'm personally doing the chemistry and the maths on Sunday. They're a bit like master classes, basically. They're only short, they're only half an hour, £5 each. But to get onto them, it's a case of just either emailing myself directly, finding me on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn and messaging me, or visiting the website, which is www.tutorright.co.uk. And now everyone gets that wrong. Stupid marketing name. Well, I don't know why I went for that.
We'll put the links in. We'll put all the links in the show comments. So anyone that's interested in finding Chris, we'll put the links in YouTube, and we'll also put them in the iTunes comments. So don't worry.
Well, thank you.
Just so you don't have to give us.
It's the middle bit, the double R in the middle. People just put one R and they go, I can't find your website. Double R.
And for the VA stuff, we'll also put the details on there. Tell us about the VA stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, the VA stuff came. My wife is currently on furlough, and it was one of those where we sort of said, what if, worst case scenario, you were to lose your job one day, and this was the first time really in our relationship where we looked at any job as being, potentially losable almost. And so we said, well, what could you do instead? And she said, well, actually, I really like the aspects of my current role, which you could liken to a PA or a VA. And she's not a PA or a VA, she's an accounts manager, but a lot of the stuff that a lot of the skills that she got transferable for that role. And I just sort of said, well, listen, I'm always thinking about the next business to run. It's something I've always wanted to do, is run a couple of different businesses. And I said, well, could you not just follow the model that we've kind of got for the tutoring business and do it that way? I said, yeah, probably could. And she knows what she's doing. She's very clever. She's manipulative, is what she is, my wife, because she's planted a seed. And what's basically happened is, from her business idea that she would go and run herself with a little bit of help from me, she's kind of sat back and watched me just run it and do it. So we've got the website that's under construction at the minute. The actual launch of that business is going to be around late May, early June. But we are, like I say, in pre-launch. We're currently working with 1 or 2 businesses, and the aim of that is to offer the services a little bit cheaper, so that we can get a bit of a foothold in the industry and get some quality reviews. So again, we are looking for 1 or 2 more, but we can only take on 1 or 2 more for this, because otherwise we'll be doing work ridiculously cheap for a long time, and we want to start, I said, getting the rates back to what we will consider normal soon. So yeah, if you want to get in touch about that, by all means, we do obviously everything you would expect of a PA or VA traditionally, including things like web design, social media, bookkeeping, note taking, all the sort of stuff you'd expect. But we're obviously a small business, and we're a lot more hands-on and like to chat to the business owners and people that work there to get to grips with what they actually want out of it. So yeah, that's kind of the idea of that.
All go then in your house.
Yeah, that's it.
Exciting though, because I think those 2 businesses together are ideal really for the future.
Yeah, well, it's something, again, there was a guy I spoke to, which was a strange one, and I actually tutored his daughter, and I was saying, this is when I first went alone, and I was running it just myself with a few students. And it was his daughter who I was tutoring. She was in year 11. She actually said to me, "Oh, you should speak to my dad about business. He loves talking shop, and he runs a few businesses." And I just said, "Yeah, no, if he will," thinking nothing of it. And I knew he was fairly well off, because I was going to the house, and it was a massive sort of barn conversion, and they had Range Rovers on the front and this sort of thing. And as he walked past, she said, "Oh, Chris, I'd like to pick your brains about some business stuff." Before I even had the chance to, I was like, and he went, "Yeah, no worries. Tell you what, end the session short, 10, 15 minutes, grab a beer and come out in the back garden." And it was cracking the flags, lovely summer's day. So, "Oh, all right, thanks." Grabbed the beer, sat out, and I was chatting to him, and I had no idea, and I've been tutoring his daughter for 2 years, and I had no idea how successful he was. So it turns out this guy had invented and patented and all that kind of stuff. When the internet was first around and people first started selling through the internet, so all the e-commerce things, and you start filling your basket up, and then you might click to exit the browser, and it pops up and says, "Are you sure you want to, we've got these items in your basket." He invented that idea of the pop-up that said, "Are you sure you want to clear your basket?" He said, and what I did with that, he said, I got investors from London to back me, did the software because I had that idea. And he was one of the first ones that would be able to grab your email address from that and then ping your basket to your sort of email and say, "Hi, yeah."
That's what Shopify got integrated in it. So
that's it. And every website you can think of, if you go and buy from any website now, they have that feature. And obviously he owned a part of that business, and he said the business was valued at its height at $19 billion.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, when I realized that, I was like, oh. And so he was telling me about the other businesses he runs, and it's ridiculous. So it turns out the guy that's like his right-hand man's gone and bought himself a helicopter for his birthday. They have Ferraris. When I was saying they had a big house, I didn't realize it was only until I sat in his garden. He said, "Do you see that building over there?" I was like, "Yeah." He went, "Do you like cars?" "Yeah." He went, "Right, come over here." He had a 7-car garage. He said there's one for each day of the week.
Garage.
Yeah, Ferraris, Porsches, Lamborghini, everything. And I was like, this is just unreal. And he was sat at home every day of the week. He'd maybe do an hour of work, and he would just oversee these businesses. And yeah, he's the one that actually gave me the definition that I'll probably share in a minute with freedom. Yeah, he did quite well.
Yeah, it's always good to have conversation with people like that, because not only is it inspirational, but also they give you little nuggets to kind of take away and think about, really.
He's a really nice guy as well, really approachable. Got his number, and basically it's one of those, if I ever need anything or advice, he'll get on the blower to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He's from St. Helens originally, and
St. Helens class.
Yeah, he said he's from the shop floor working class and just worked his way up, and obviously came up with this idea that just took off. And he said he's dead open and honest. He says, I was really lucky. Obviously things have to go your way, but I did work really hard. So fair play to him. It's nice to see someone successful who you think, I'm glad they're successful, they deserve it. Up themselves.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. And it's always good to hear those sort of like rags to riches stories where
it's
like a working class person who's worked themselves rather than been born into it somehow. It just we just love those stories, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the future's looking bright for you as regards to everything you're doing, because really it's kind of, I think when people create sort of online businesses, it's untouchable, isn't it, in regards to everyone's got the two businesses you've got. I mean, I know the VA one's about to launch.
Infancy,
we always need tutors, don't we? And VAs as well is something that every business owner, and there's more and more sort of solopreneurs that are popping up that haven't got that infrastructure of loads and loads of staff that really, really do need VAs. So brilliant kind of business models you've got set up there, really.
Well, that's it. It was just a case of using what skills I knew, organisational skills from being a teacher, the actual content, education-wise, of being a teacher, and it's something I loved. And the VA thing is something that my wife is really, really passionate about, and she knows that I'm passionate about building businesses. So the two go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, if anybody listening does want to get in touch with Chris, we'll put all his details in the comments section, because you may listen to this in a couple of months' time when his VA business website's up and running, but you'll be able to contact him through the tutor website. We'll put all his details and his Instagram contact details. And if you're in Clubhouse as well, go and check him out on Clubhouse as well, because he's done some fab rooms around all those small business hacks, wasn't it?
That's it, yeah.
So I always ask everybody at the end of the interview, what does freedom mean to you? Because of course it's your freedom podcast. So what does freedom mean to you, Chris?
Going back to that guy I was talking to you about, he said to me, his version of freedom changed over the years, and it became the idea that you could work when you wanted to, where you wanted to, and it's the idea that you don't have to work if you don't want to on any given day for any set period of time, and you are, in his version, earning money when you sleep. And if you're doing that, you're running a successful business, the likelihood is you've got that definition of freedom sussed. So it's not earning loads of money, it's earning what you need to get by without needing to work on any given day.
I like that. It's like choosing exactly when you want to work.
That's it. Because the thing is as well, if you're passionate about it, you want to work. Like for me, it doesn't feel like work sometimes, because and it's cliche, but I absolutely love what I'm doing. I'm passionate about it. Like I said earlier, I'm getting paid to do my hobby. So for me,
exactly.
that's freedom already.
That's how I feel. So I think it's nice when you get to that level. It's only this last year that I've really reflected on it, thinking, so glad I got out of that shitty marriage, because there's been so many people that have, like, in domestic abuses, like doubled in the pandemic. So I thought, God, I would have been living in a hell being locked down. And two, like, I set up my online business in 2013. It probably didn't really get successful until 2015, 16. But I'm glad I made that transition, because obviously a lot of friends and family have had a challenging sort of 12 months as regards to being on furlough or just everything, happened to them. Whereas actually, the only thing that's really impacted me is being a single parent and trying to homeschool. So yeah. I've ended up paying for tutors because I'm like, oh my God, Jesus, is too much like hard work. But I've been really, really grateful on reflection. So I think it gives you the freedom. And when we had that nice weather last week or the week before, on one of the days, it was so nice. I just thought, blow it. I'm just going to have a few, because obviously the boys were at school. I thought I was going to seize the opportunity and take a few hours this afternoon before I'm going to go and get them. And it was nice to be able to just do that and make that decision sort of last minute, really. So you can choose, and it's what it means to you. Like I say, I don't mind doing evening stuff because I've always done evening stuff. So working around my two boys, my precious time is from about this time on it, if it's not the school holidays, from 3 o'clock till sort of 6 o'clock is my time with them, really. So you can just get to choose those different times, whereas sometimes I'm working at 11 o'clock at night, but I am a bit of a night owl because I do big interviews, or I'm on Clubhouse with people, in the US, so there's that 5-hour difference. I just don't mind it. I enjoy it, and it's like you say, if it feels like it's not work, you know that you're doing the right thing. So
that's it. Don't chase the money. The money will come afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So really do appreciate your time, because you shared a lot on this, and I think it's been really inspiring as well for people that could be sat there, especially teachers. I don't think I've interviewed a teacher as yet, or anybody that's kind of suffered with anxiety or depression and maybe not realised, because I think that can so easily happen, and how you kind of turn things around, and wish you all the success in the future. And it's great how our paths have crossed, because I'm sure there's other things that we can collaborate on in the future. So really proud to meet you. Or you reached out to me actually from Clubhouse, so thanks for doing that.
Oh, thanks for coming on the Clubhouse.
So it's great to meet another Northerner in the UK as well, because everyone I'm meeting in the Clubhouse is generally from the US, so it was quite nice when you reached out. I was like, yes, another Brit. So thanks for the time. Thanks for your time, because I know time's precious, so appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.